After Emily Rifkin was released from prison for sneaking drugs into jail, her parents welcomed her back into their home. But soon, she was using drugs again.
Why is it you wanted to maintain a lie for so long?
A lie that Hillsborough Judge Jack Espinoza Jr. says is all too common among addicts. Espinoza's been involved in drug court for more than 15 years, but says the problem isn't getting better.
It's an epidemic. It's frightening.
Funding is now a major problem.
The wait for residential beds are anywhere from 4 to 6 months. So we're not exactly getting them into treatment that they need and require as soon as possible.
At any given time, I have a wait list of 20 to 40 patients that are trying to get into treatment. And those are people obviously that are waiting for a residential bed. And that's always a challenge.
That's why, despite a judge's order, people like Emily have to go to a halfway house and wait weeks or months to get into a residential treatment program. Emily appeared before Judge Espinoza after the family took the drastic measure of filing a Marchman Act.
Under the Marchman Act is really where the rubber hits the road.
The Marchman Act says that an individual has a drug or alcohol problem that is life-threatening to them and could be life-threatening to someone else. And you're asking the court to get involved and to take over the responsibility.
In Emily's case, the family watched her drop out of college, get a DUI, go to prison, lose control of her life, and become a shell of her former self.
On 4 separate occasions during the month of June, the first time Emily went in, she was drug tested by Judge Espinoza. And as he said, she hit a grand slam. She was positive for 6 of the 6 drugs that they tested for.
While Emily was waiting for a residential treatment space to open up, a court-appointed counselor provided Emily with outpatient drug treatment at the center in Tampa. Sonia Buffy at the center helps provide group counseling for addicted women.
I know that the parents were very involved, that they were very concerned, but that they also tried to protect Emily sometimes, and sometimes, didn't want her to have to face some of the consequences. And that's understandable because they loved her.
In comments made before Judge Espinoza, David and his wife discovered something about Emily they had not known before.
In the court, she talked about how my wife and I babied her and we didn't allow her to spread her wings and grow.
She was right. She was an adult.
We decided that we were part of the problem and asked the courts to put her in a halfway house.
Addicts are very cunning and baffling, and we manipulate our parents. They're the first people we take and we steal from, we hurt, as our family. They need to cut the child off. You need to let them grow up.
Ray Harris is a streetwise former addict who runs Simply Hope, transitional housing for recovering addicts based in Pinellas Park. It's where Stacy Nicholson checked in the night her cousin Frankie died.
It's dangerous to keep enabling a child that's an addict, because eventually you're going to bury your child. Because they're going to keep using, and one day they're going to overdose, because the disease of addiction has 3 places, okay? Jails, institutions, and death.
No one knows for sure when prescription drug abuse became epidemic in Florida, and addicts from around the country began lining up at pain clinics to pay cash for narcotics.
We didn't attack the crisis years and years ago like we should have. Florida, unfortunately, became the pill mill state.
State Senator Mike Fasano was outraged to learn that 7 people were dying of prescription drug overdoses in Florida every day.
We had the lieutenant governor from Kentucky begging us here in Florida to implement the prescription drug monitoring program because he said that Florida was killing their residents.
The Prescription Drug Monitoring Program, or PDMP, that tracks the prescribing and the sale of narcotic drugs, faced opposition from Governor Rick Scott, who cited privacy concerns. But when newly elected Attorney General Pam Bondi took up the cause, the program was funded.
Brendan, we were known as the Oxy Express, and that was ridiculous.
But the monitoring program has its limits. Pharmacists have 7 days to report their sales, and the reporting is optional for doctors.
I would like it to be mandatory, absolutely. We at least have it up and running, which is so important to me.
Attorney General Bondi also ordered a statewide pill mill crackdown. Bondi claims they cut the number of pill mills nearly in half, but those who enforce the law at street level aren't seeing much improvement.
The street level price remains constant at about $17 a pill, and we haven't seen a change in that. And I would
What does that tell you?
Well, it tells me that the supply is still plentiful and that the supply hasn't changed.
Pinellas Sheriff Bob Gualtieri says the addicts and the dealers always find a way around the law. When pain management clinics came under tighter regulation, they started calling them weight loss centers.
One of the latest tricks is that if you come in, is that they won't dispense, won't write you a prescription for these opiate-based pharmaceuticals unless you take a urine test and you have opiates in your system. Why? Because undercover cops don't have opiates in their system.
Addiction always finds a way, which is why the sheriff sees treatment and education as the only solution.
We're going to keep dealing with the consequences because we have to, because it has such a devastating effect on our community. But I know, and we've been at this for many, many years now, is that we're not going to solve it. Law enforcement's not going to solve it.
Meanwhile, Stacy was doing well at Simply Hope, going to counseling 4 days a week and holding down a job. The program gave her independence.
They have to pay rent every week, and they have rules and curfews, and I think it's a very good structured environment for the addicts.
For someone who had smoked pot regularly since the age of 13, Stacy took pride in staying clean for 75 days.
Any day clean for an addict, 1 day clean for an addict is a miracle. Because in our minds, we don't think we can stay clean for 1 day.
Stacy's sobriety was fragile and would not last. At a friend's house, Stacy happened to notice a bottle of pills in the bathroom. From the counter, it went into her pocket. Inside were anti-seizure pills.
I thought about it for a good 20 minutes.
She popped 2 pills into her mouth and felt that familiar numbness. She wound up taking 6.
And I fought with myself before I did it too. But it was such a reaction to just do it. So I did it. And they started hitting me, so I took a couple more.
Her first thought was whether she should throw them up, and her second was to call her mother, who brought her home.
I pray that she gets this out of her system and picks herself up, brushes herself off, and moves on. And
I ate a couple pills.
I know,
that's all I did.
and that she doesn't test dirty, that she gets a chance to clean her system, clean up before they test her.
Days later, Stacy had a routine drug test, and despite her mother's concerns she would test dirty, she passed. But Stacy soon ran into trouble after ignoring one of Ray Harris's rules. Ray dragged her into court.
Most addicts, they have a hard time being honest. That's one of the biggest things for addicts is to be honest.
For the first time, she faced getting kicked out of Simply Hope.
This is about Stacy Nicholson.
Ray was suspicious. Stacy seemed different. So he visited her at work one evening when she was supposed to be there, and she wasn't. And if she's not working, she's required to be at the halfway house.
I'm not seeing my son, and it's not good for him. He's 2 years old, and he knows who I am, and he's crying to my mom to see me.
Stacy originally told Ray that she worked late, but then said she was let off early and spent the evening with her son Richie at her mom's house.
It is about Stacy, not about the son, as far as I'm concerned. It's about the behavior pattern.
Judge Farnell knew nothing about her taking the pills and that she had relapsed. Stacy wasn't going to tell her.
If it keeps going the way it's going, from my experience, from what I observe, it's going to get worse. Unfortunately, with the disease of addiction, it has to get worse before it gets better.
The judge gave her 2 days in jail, and Ray let her return to Simply Hope.
I don't put them in jail, they put themselves in jail. Their behavior puts them in jail.
Sometimes I have to convince them, you know, that they can do it, that they don't believe in themselves, and I feel like I have to, hey, you can do this.
But just a few months later, Stacy would once again stand before the judge and Ray Harris in court, this time to explain why she had taken some other pills.
Coming up, an unbelievable story lands Stacy back in court and facing a 10-year sentence.
Her whole angle, once she was caught, was how can she get out of this?
And we discover Emily had more going on in her life than she let on when If I Die Young continues.